Ready?
Got the coffee cross Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking when I bought this. I've been fighting a headache for like 2 days. It's gone now for the most part, but I wouldn't be surprised if this brings it right the hell back.
Yeah, that always helps me out. Are you hearing okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just thought I'd record this too. Hello and welcome to Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode 29-4, and we are your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
Every week we give you a podcast, and you give us
the 411.
The 411. What's the 411, son? What's the 411?
Actually, more of you should give us the 411. Write some emails in. Give us a chatter batter.
Yeah, what's happening?
But otherwise, yeah, we do a podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we ultimately get together and have fun. And that's what's important.
Yes.
So, hello!
And it's video game music. All consoles, all generations. We pick a topic. And we're back in the summer of 16-bit. But the summer's almost over. Technically, I guess.
Out of nowhere, too. Because the funny thing is we got to go back and look at them. Because technically after this in the Patreon episode, thanks to listener and friend Kevin, we pretty much have topics for the rest of the summer.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Kevin in our Discord and everyone else in the Discord. It's actually moderately busy in there, which is nice to see. So if you want to see our Discord, go to our website, rhythmandpixels.com, and there's a link up there that goes to our Discord.
And I've been kind of out for like a month on like social media stuff. But I see slowly eking back in
every once in a while.
Yeah, because I'm trying. Because I realize I should be talking to people. And I realize it's also much easier to talk to people when the topic is video games and music.
Yes.
So that's what I get into, and it always feels good to be like, "Hey, so what game are you playing? What game am I playing?" Though what I've come to realize is that it was probably the Summer Games Challenge, and my challenge was. We haven't even gotten to the wrap-up episode for that yet, but I can already tell you it's been fairly abysmal, but I am actually, believe it or not, hoping to knock out 3 games.
That's good.
3 more games anyway, before the term is up.
Okay. See, I mean, that's impressive for now, because
I was gunning for 10 this summer.
That's a lofty goal, though. I mean, for so many months to get 10 games in, it's completed.
I think the joke's going to be the wrap-up for Summer Games Challenge, and then a follow-up episode for Games Started Over Summer Challenge. Because
that was like New Game Plus.
New Game Plus, because that's where I'm a Viking. I started so many friggin' games this summer. It's absurd.
Yeah.
But that'll be saved for another episode. Aside from that, how's life?
Good. I mean, really, like, you're the only other person I talk to outside of my wife and my dog.
Well, the dog has to provide riveting conversation.
Like, I do work with people, but I don't really talk to them that much. I mean, there's nothing in common. It's fine, but they're not terrible. Not 100% terrible.
just running the paces.
Yeah,
basically.
that's fine. Yeah, but it was really nice having you over last weekend. We played Seasons.
Yes, I love that
Which
game.
is great. And me and Christy agreed that by the end of it wasn't just because it was late, but our brains were fried.
Whereas mine was still firing. Pew, pew, pew.
Which is why you killed us in that game. But it's so much math. There's so much math in that game. I was not prepared for it.
I love math games. I have an actual game where the whole premise is to create equations.
That sounds cool. That sounds cool. This was like I was just checking points, like double checking points, and then like you had things that would double check points. It was just too much. It was great. Don't get me wrong. I would play it again 100%.
And the funny part is you go to like a Board Game Geek site or something, and it's listed as being like a medium to like light medium game. I'm like, what?
No, because by the time you're done, your brain feels like a peanut, like shriveled peanut. It's like, it's hardened. It's just...
But it's a satisfying feeling.
It's dried up.
You feel like your thoughts have run the mill, and the result is bread or butter, depending on what you like.
And the result's getting beat by your friend.
Yes. Especially if that friend is me.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna do it, and then by the end you were just running it. You were running it. So we talked about doing RPGs, but then I suggested, Pernell, we do RPGs.
But then, and once you got onto that, it kind of struck me as a good opportunity to do a very specific version of this theme. And there's a specific version of the theme that is near and dear to me.
Did I forget something?
Yes, you probably did, but that's part of the fun.
Okay. We were doing 16?
16-bit, but it's a little deeper than that. So the topic title for the episode is 16-bit RPGs that don't start with Final Fantasy.
Oh, okay. No, I did have that.
Okay, goody.
I was like, 16-bit RPGs that have blue characters. I'm like, crap.
That's not how many there are. So why specifically that? Why so structured around that title? Well, that is because many moons ago, I used to go to anime conventions with a group of friends, and we used to put on a panel at these conventions called RPGs that don't start with Final Fantasy. And the reason being was because we used to harp on how a lot of nostalgia heads would just talk up Final Fantasy like it was the greatest thing ever. But you bring up something like a Lufia or something like, what the heck is that? What's a Lufia? Like, what?
I spent all my time replaying the same 3 or 4 games over and over again. Yeah.
So we were like, we should have a panel where we bring this up, and that becomes the actual shtick for the panel. So it started out being RPGs of the 90s. Then it was RPGs like that, like all RPGs, like RPGs of the ages.
Yes.
And then one year we did one where it was like only Final Fantasy, nothing else, just for fun. Like,
that's what you did at the last MagFest, right?
No, it was still at ASIN. MagFest, actually, I wanted to do it.
I was thinking of ASIN. I was thinking of ASIN. Yeah, I was thinking of ASIN when you did that. Yeah, because remember you were just on the show. You were talking about replaying a bunch of them.
Yeah, and it was fun. But the sad part is, as much as I felt like we would have always done better at MagFest, but I could never get all of the panelists to fly out for it, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, it's easier for one person to fly out rather than like everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but it still lives on in my heart, and I'm still friends with a number of them, and one of which is actually a patron, which is pretty cool.
Oh,
so
is that the wise guy?
The wise guy. That should be his new nickname. The wise guy.
That's all I remember.
Musashi 219,
aka
Chris, the wise guy.
Is he the wise? No, come on.
Is there an actual the wise
Wisner?
guy?
Chris Wisner.
Yes, the wise guy.
I called him the wise guy.
But yeah, he was one of the original members for the most part.
Okay, cool.
He came on the second year as a moderator. No. Yeah, he was a moderator, but he just naturally blended in, and he became a panelist / moderator. It was great.
You corrupted him. He's like, you can't control this. You can't control this. So for this show, I wanted to, because I never really played a lot of RPGs in the 90s, I went back and played a few in the 2000s, obviously, like some of the Final Fantasies, like the Squaresoft ones, the big ones. But there are so many on the Super Famicom, the Mega Drive, the PC Engine that I've never touched that have incredible soundtracks. So I wanted to pick Japanese-only titles.
So I'm looking forward to yours. Whereas in my case, in addition to just the general theme, every game I chose from is a game that was a favorite of one of the other panelists in the group.
You gonna call them out?
Of course.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm looking forward to this then. So I'm gonna start with the Super Famicom. This is Fire Emblem. I think this is Japanese only. I mean, I don't know these games very well.
Well, it depends on the Fire.
Well, Fire Emblem Monshou no Nazo, known as Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem.
Actually, I think that might be only Japan.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one getting translated.
It is composed by Yuka Tsujiyoko, and we're going to listen to the track, I chose a few, War of Heroes, from Fire Emblem Monshou no Nazo for the Super Famicom. You're listening to the track War of Heroes, Purnell.
Really?
Yeah, this is from Fire Emblem Monshou no Nazo, or Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, for the Super Famicom, composed by Yuka Tsujiyoko. Purnell.
Oh, well, now that you tell me, now I get it. Now it makes sense.
So yeah, a lot of this soundtrack is kind of like a marching, like kind of military rhythm to it.
So, worth asking, you haven't played it, yes, but are you familiar with the style of Fire Emblem games?
It is strategy RPG, right?
Yes.
Okay, I always get them confused with Breath of Fire.
Oh yeah,
which is different game, very different game, yeah. But Fire Emblem's the one that's more of a strategy RPG, right?
Yes, Fire Emblem is usually like a plucky band of heroes working together to defeat some army, evil force, or something. So the marching would be, like the individual members being moved across the map, and then you're fighting like various like individuals that are meant to represent a wave of soldiers.
Oh, okay.
And you're taking them out.
Oh, right. And then when the units touch each other, then you see like the big masses of them like fight or whatever.
Oh, no, it's still just 1v1.
Oh.
It's just the fact that like the enemies will be like, Grushian soldier, marauder. Mm-hmm. So like just general group of people working against you. And then eventually, of course, the final boss. But then the later games, I think Three Houses was the last one. And that actually finally embraced the whole idea of, like, you're in a war. So even though it's 1v1 combat, when the battle is actually running, you see, like, groups of people going at it.
Oh.
So it's actually kind of a cool idea.
So it's so originally, I guess the original ones are a lot like Shining Force in that way?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I liked Shining Force. I played that on mobile. I played that on my iPhone.
I'm actually kind of sad because very recently someone brought up, like I saw a link to a new Shining Force, but it's just a gacha mobile, the usual shtick where it's like, hey, you love nostalgia? Do you like gacha?
That's rough.
Well, we got something for you.
That is rough.
How about making an actual game? Not this gacha garbage.
I used to play the tactical as a Final Fantasy Tactics. I know this is RPGs that don't rhyme with Final Fantasy, but I used to play Final Fantasy Tactics on the DS one. What was it called?
Well, the DS one was Grimoire of the Rift. It was called Final Fantasy Tactics A2. Grimoire of the Rift.
That's what I played.
Though someone's like, I might be wrong on that second part, but I'm confident.
I think it was A2. I think it was A2.
It was definitely A2.
Yeah. But I remember getting really into it, but then like, okay, I was at TransUnion, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go on my lunch break, and I'll play through a battle. And it would take my entire lunch break.
But what a lunch break!
And then it would be done, and I'd be like, wait a minute, how many more battles do I have to fight just to level up any of these things?
Oh, that game was crap.
And I kind of gave up on it because it was just so time-consuming.
It killed me. That game literally killed me. Not because it was a bad game. It was a great game.
I am the ghost of Purnell.
That's exactly it. But this ghost loves games. So the problem with that game for me was that I got lost in my original goal. Like I was like, I got to get Grease, which were like these flying like harpy character. Like they're like sort of like, I don't call them harpy because they had like reptile wings. But basically that was a specific type of unit. But they were hard to get. But then when I would get them, I had to build up these crazy builds of like, well, yeah, this job skill, but then this job skill, and then this job skill. And I put so many hours into it, but I forgot where I left off.
Oh, no.
So I can still bring the game up. It'll still show 95 hours or something. A quarter way through the game, I have no idea what I was doing, which is why I stopped playing it.
That's tough. You get so far in the weeds of like a strategy. But that's cool though. I mean, that's a testament to the game's design that you can just go and just do whatever. And then when I feel like with most RPGs, I appreciate a very linear design, a very linear story. Like it tells you where to go next, or at least it implies where to go next. The tactics games was like, you're going to fight these things, but you can just do whatever you want, right? You can just kind of like build your team out however you want them to do. For me, tactics was all about just surviving. I was like, I just need to survive.
Well, the funny thing is that it was linear, but you could either select the story mission or select one of the 5 other missions they make available to you, or just do a skirmish. And you're like, but the skirmish gives me experience to get job points to build out a cool character. So the story's staring me in the face, but I gotta get customatic. I just made that word up. But I gotta customize. I gotta get to it.
Yeah.
You're obsessed with it.
You're getting creative with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that when games can encourage you to do that. But Again, we're talking about Final Fantasy, and that's naughty.
That's very bad.
I go into the penalty box.
Yes, you do. While Pernell picks a track.
Yes, that's right.
So what track am I going to pick?
That was an amazing segue. I would like to accept this award.
So the track I'm going to pick to kick this off from my end is from the game The Twisted Tales of Spike McFang.
What?
And the track title is called Ratville Mountain Range. And it was composed by Hisashi Matsushita. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ratville Mountain Range theme from the game The Twisted Tales of Spike McFang from the Super Nintendo, composed by Hisashi Matsushita. So, Spike McFang was pretty much an action RPG on the system, with the idea being that you would play as a little vampire kid. He was probably a kid, I don't know. And he was fighting against like a zombie army to save his kingdom. I barely knew a ton about it, but the whole running thing about this is that this was turn-based critic Malcolm's like big game that he would always bring up like every year. It became a running joke where it's like, clearly only you would like Spike McFriggin Fang. But deep down, it's a game that is on my eternal list of Pernell really needs to play this game because, one, it was done by, of all things, Naxat, which is a company that I bring up here and there related to games like Devil's Crush and stuff like that. So if that's the same Naxat,
they didn't. Oh wow! So
and Dungeon Explorer.
Okay, that makes sense. Dungeon Explorer with this one.
So,
it's kind of an action RPG.
Yeah, it's adorable too.
It's so cute. I'm watching a video of it, and it's so cartoony. It's amazing. Amazing. Is he like a vampire kid?
He's a vampire kid.
Ooh.
He came after Kid Dracula, but he's still spectacular in his own way. But it's just the idea that this game existed, and it was brought up in Nintendo Power, which is how I heard of it. Mm-hmm. But I never heard anyone talk about it until Malcolm started bringing it up, and he talked it up as like it was this really good game that nobody played, and technically, I think he was right that more people should play it, myself included. And I'm going to.
We will.
Someday.
It's the summer challenge for now.
Actually, that probably would be a game I could knock out before the end of the summer. It's just short enough.
When I finish my Persona challenge, which is finishing a Persona game, maybe I'll do classic RPGs.
That would be a good one.
Cool. If
they're all fairly short. That's the way that makes that special.
I gotta get them on a handheld so that like I can put on like TV in the background, like reality TV, and I can grind through a game.
There's probably a way to do that. Maybe get like a 3DS with a R4 or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or no, I could. Don't they connect to like the virtual consoles or whatever?
That's not a good way.
I can't like download like
the virtual console isn't a good way to go because one, you'd have to buy a Switch. And I know you ain't doing that. And two, the Virtual Console is very limited in what games they put on there. It's not like a massive repository.
But there's a bunch.
Nintendo releases games.
Well, I could do a 2DS, right?
Yeah, but 2DS would be the same problem. You need to find a way to get the games onto the 2DS, and unless you're talking about playing just 2DS games or DS games, you'll need an R4.
I'll have to talk to my
emulation.
I'll have to talk to my Hacker Underground friends for now. Crash Override, Acid Burn,
Smash Atom,
Floppy Discman.
There you go. That's a good thing.
Modem Boy.
No, he's Modem Man now.
Oh,
he aged.
It's been a few years. I've been a few years. Modem Man. Did you have I had a modem. I had a 2400 baud modem.
I remember
it was massive. It was huge. And then then I had a 14.4, which was a little bit smaller. Then I had a 56K. And my big thing was I learned how to send a code to it so that it wouldn't play that sound. So if it was like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night,
you mean
yeah. You can turn it off. It doesn't have to play that noise because it went directly into the phone. Phone line.
So what was the whole point of the noise? Just to let you know it was doing it?
It's like starting a car, right?
That is true. That was my dad one Married with Children episode where it was like your car makes so much noise when you turn it on, though. Because that was like a fault of, they were like, your car's so old. He's like, but that's how you know the car's working.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like, like a Tesla or a Prius drives down the street, and I'm like, okay, one of these things is going to hit me one of these days because I can't hear it.
Road. Noisy cars are how you know they're around.
Well, I see motorcycles sometimes that are super loud, and I wonder, like, but it's because it's dangerous to ride a motorcycle, so they want other people on the road to know where they are.
Yeah, and I can kind of respect that. Whereas with racers, there's no reason for those to be that loud. That's just jerkdom.
Yeah, just big honking exhaust pipes.
Mm-hmm.
You never got into that, right?
Never, ever. And if you find a time where I did, feel free to hit me with a shovel. I'll preserve it.
Yeah, me neither. As much as I loved like Initial D, I was never gonna like drive crazy. I was like,
well, driving crazy is fun. It's the crazy exhaust.
Oh yeah,
and just blasting black fumes all over the sky. That's not driving crazy.
Yeah,
driving stupid.
Yeah, that's not cool. Yeah, I see trucks do that. It's not good. Oh, we got our Buick registered.
Oh, Christ.
In Delaware.
Finally,
that thing is old. Actually, it's 2004.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes me long for my old truck.
Right. Yeah, we were thinking about that. We were like, wow, this is as old as Purnell's old, what was it? A
Blazer.
Blazer, yeah.
I missed that thing. We went on so many adventures together.
Yeah, you did.
Installed on I-95, and it just outright burned out. I couldn't drive it anymore. I had to get it towed off the side of the interstate.
How is it that we can like laugh at that now, but like when we had those cars, we're like, oh,
well, I can laugh at it now because the $3,000 is already out of my pocket.
Yeah,
but at the time, it hurt very much.
Yeah. Anyway, I misspelled Ratville.
How does one do that?
Ratville. Okay, so keeping up with our theme, I'm gonna pick from all the different main 16-bit systems.
Okay. Oh, so you're actually gonna do that?
Yes. So, but also keeping up with Purnell, this is a PC Engine CD title.
But it's Japanese though.
But it's Japanese, and it uses, but it does use the original PC Engine sound chip. It's not CD audio.
Okay.
And the game itself looks like really advanced, just 16-bit graphics. It was doing some really cool stuff. This is a game called Blood Gear. It's an action RPG and set in the future. You're riding around in mechs. So part of the game is side-scrolling action, kind of slow, and then the rest of the game is kind of top-down RPG elements, leveling up your robot. It looks really cool. I can't believe I've never heard about this because the soundtrack is fantastic.
Well, it's time to hear what it sounds like.
You're going to dig this. So I couldn't find a lot of gameplay for this game, so I couldn't really match up with because all the tracks were just like BGM 1, BGM 2.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah. They didn't have like a lot of like official soundtrack releases. So I think this is boss battle music, but I couldn't tell based on the gameplay because it's in Japanese. So for the PC Engine CD, this is the BGM 16, which I think is the boss battle for Blood Gear, composed by Jin Watanabe. You're listening to BGM 16. I think this is boss battle music from the game Blood Gear for the PC Engine CD, composed by Jin Watanabe. And this whole soundtrack is so cool. It's like futuristic. It reminds me of Thunder Force 4, Lightning Force.
Like the sound?
The sound and the music itself reminds me of Lightning Force for the Sega Genesis Mega Drive. But it's just so interesting. It's got so many layers to it. A lot of the tracks got this really interesting, like jazzy kind of element to it, almost proggy element to it. Lots of interesting counter melodies. And this big soaring, I feel like you don't hear this often with PC Engine music or TurboGrafx music, where it's like that long sustained note. Yeah. You don't get that a lot. It's more usually a little more beepy or a little bit more harsh.
There's like one track in Ys Book 1 and 2 that does that sound, and I did like it.
Yeah, and it sustains, and it gets a little vibrato at the end. Here it comes right here. Here it comes. One more, two.
Yep. It's a very good sound.
It's a great sound.
I'm actually floored by the fact that I went and looked this game up, because I've never heard of it either. It was done by Weston. So for those who are like, why the heck does he give two hoots about Weston? Well, Weston is the company that worked on the Dragon's Curse, or the Monster Boy games, basically. I shouldn't say Dragon. I'm still Weston that did Dragon's Curse, even though it was Hudson's version of it. But essentially, Weston did all the Wonder Boy games that I love so friggin' much.
Oh.
They didn't do Curse Kingdom, but of course, Curse Kingdom was done hoping to put off the style that was originally done in the Weston games. So, yes, Weston is a fantastic developer. I miss them very much. And hearing that they did this game makes me want to look for a fan translation and give it a go.
It's really cool. Finding the soundtrack was a little difficult. I think someone on YouTube got a little bit of it uploaded, and a lot of the tracks were taken down. And I can't find the actual sound file rips. So I'll have to do a little more digging. But fortunately, I was able to get this one. And there's so many good tracks to choose from.
Of course, now this is going to become like your new mission. Like, I got to play all the Blood Gear tracks on the show.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
Someone did suggest Cogs as an episode topic at one point, so there you go. Another track from Blood Gear. There's no Cogs in the game, but the word Gears in the title.
Gears with the Gear episode. Actually, I have a little side project that I'm slowly organizing, which is finding TurboGrafx and PC Engine soundtracks that aren't on YouTube or only have like that one long video.
Oh, I'm getting them individually listed?
Yeah, and doing them individually and just put them up on our channel.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I just
Start with Shibubin Man.
Shibubin Man. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I just need to find a good automated way of like just doing it, or at least a good process, so that I'm not wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, I can understand.
So that like I could be at work doing work stuff, and then like kicking off jobs on the side, and then just going back to work, So look forward to that. PC Engine music on our. Something just broke.
Well, I can tell you right now.
We're good.
It looks fine to me. But I could also say, look forward to the Shibubin Man OSTs, because of all of those games. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the name of the game.
We talked about this. You're like, Shibubin Man.
Shibubin Man. Shibubin Man.
That reminds me of that arcade game. It's like baseball bat, Shibubin Man.
Ninja Baseball Batman or something.
Yeah,
like that.
But it's like Shibubin Man, right?
No, it's Ninja Baseball Batman.
Isn't it just that? Yeah, it is. It's okay. I thought it was like Ninja Baseball Bat Shibubin Man.
And for the record, it is a fun game. David Taylor has this game.
Oh, the Ninja Baseball Batman?
Yes, it is a fan. I was over at his house one day. We were playing through it. It is a surprisingly fun game.
It would be funny if it was like not a brawler, but it was actually like Mat Ball, like we talked about.
Honestly, the title would fit if it were. Kids would just be like, the characters would just be like knocking each other off the mat with like ninja moves. Throwing shuriken.
Oh, it's IRAM. That's awesome. All right, we should move on. So what's your next track?
All right, next track is going to come from, the game Terranigma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
This is the overworld theme from that game, and it is composed by Miyoko, Takaoka, and Masanori Hikichi. Welcome back. You're listening to the Overworld theme from the game Terranigma on the Super Nintendo, composed by Miyoko Takaoka and Masanori Hikichi. So, Terranigma is the third of the what is known as the Creation Trio, a trilogy of games that were created by the development company Quintet, and unfortunately the only one of the three that did not get a U.S. official release.
What were the other titles?
Soul Blazer and Illusion of Gaia.
Okay.
So these games are pretty much a fan favorite, most specifically Terranigma, of Rob, aka R.O.B.
Yes,
from
me.
the turn. No, not you.
Me.
You never heard of this game.
I did it.
Rob from the Turn-Based Critics. He was a major proponent of speaking up for these games. And honestly, anything that gets more love for Quintet is a good thing in my book.
And you were saying this is another action RPG, right?
Uh-huh. And the idea being creation, in that in all three games, there is some element of recreating the world from the ground up. In this case, the main character drops down to Earth from like a place that's like a town or a village that has been isolated from the remains of the current state of Earth. And he has to pretty much rebuild it from the ground up by like releasing like elements that have been like entrapped, like grass and wind. It's an interesting concept for a game, and I never finished it myself. I started it, got a ways into it, lost my save file, and never resumed. But I want to go back. And I actually tried to boot it up again a couple days ago. It was like, oh yeah, that whole loss of the save file. I forgot that happened.
This sounds so interesting to me. Something about action RPGs I have a really hard time with. I think it's like working under pressure, and it's not always like Twitch. It's also like very tactical.
That's why you should play something like maybe Secret of Mana would work for you, because in that game, magic it's like you can dodge the magic.
Yes,
you're just going to get hit.
You're just going to get hit. I remember playing Odin Sphere and having a really hard time with that game
because that game gets rough. I never finished Odin Sphere.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Also,
I thought I was just
though, because I put it on hard mode and it showed me. I
always thought I was just bad, but maybe I am just bad.
Well, also that game, at least the original version, had horrible slowdown, so that could have played a role in it too.
That would have helped, though, right?
No. Not if you're working on timing issues.
No, I guess you're right. Yeah. I think about like shoot 'em ups where things slow down, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, those are good because the timing doesn't change because you're moving at the same pace as the bullets.
Yeah.
So you're just like slowly kind of wedging your way through versus a game like Odin Sphere where it's like you're ready to go to a swing and the game slows down, so your reaction time is all like, whoop, and there goes that. But yeah, I'm a personal huge fan of Illusion of Gaia. Soul Blazer was a game that I remember reading about Nintendo Power, and I never got a chance to. Well, I won't say never because that did change, but I didn't get a chance to play it in its heyday. But I was always enchanted by it because of Nintendo Power, and then I got a chance to finally get into it in early 2010s or so, and had a good time playing it. But Terranigma is the one that missed the boat. Illusion of Gaia, I probably still have this T-shirt that came with my copy of the game. I just gotta look at my old archives.
I can picture the artwork to Illusion of Gaia. I did a remix of Illusion of Gaia on our on our YouTube page.
Really?
Yeah, years ago.
So good.
It's really good. This soundtrack, this song is phenomenal. It's like it sounds fully orchestrated on the Super Nintendo. This is amazing stuff.
Makes for a very serene sense of exploration, wouldn't you say?
I think so. Let's explore our next track, shall we?
Segways!
Right, now we're going to venture into the Mega Drive. Sega Mega Drive.
Mega Driven.
As it's known around the world. Sega Genesis, as it's known.
In the sticks of America.
Yeah, out here in America town.
Out here in the sticks.
It's like that Billy Joel song, Born in the USA. That's not Billy Joel, is it?
It probably isn't. I wouldn't know.
Bruce Springsteen.
I know it because of music, and I'm good for that.
Okay. We're going to listen from the game. It's called Surging Aura. It's for the Sega Mega Drive. This is the boss battle music. It is composed. We only have the name KAMO, K-A-M-O. I don't know the actual artist's name. So, no, it's a little pseudonym there. So this is a boss battle from the game Surging Aura. We're listening to the boss battle music from the game Surging Aura for the Sega Mega Drive, composed by KAMO. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole for the composer name, because sometimes if they use a pseudonym, you can kind of like, maybe if they're credited under a different game from the same development company, you can track down who they are, right? And I could not, because this development company had like some super generic name. It was like Japanese Entertainment Enterprises or something like that.
GameSoft.
And then if you look at their other games, this is the only Mega Drive game they made, and then the only Saturn games they made were little block puzzle games that when you completed a puzzle showed nudie pictures of girls.
They were very popular back then, so I can see why they probably switched to that.
Yeah, probably. but this game looks like a really big Phantasy Star style RPG. I think it has some fan translations. The long plays on YouTube are fan translated into Russian. So hard to tell what's happening there, but it looks really cool. And then the soundtrack is really neat. So it's a very kind of hard rock style.
I wonder if it had an English translation too.
It might be
worth looking into. But it was one thing that was interesting to look at the video for it, because it got me to thinking. Though I had these thoughts in the past anyway, probably came from doing all the reviews and stuff. But games, there's so many video games that get developed. And when it comes to RPGs, other genres works like this too. Definitely with beat 'em ups, but with RPGs, it's amazing how very rote, similar, by the book they can be.
Yeah.
And yet we still like them all as individual games. Like, I watched the video for this game and I'm like, I've seen like 20 other games that look exactly like this, with walking through the cave, with those types of textures.
I know, but then but it looks a little different, like a little cleaner, and you're like, oh, I'd play that.
I would totally play it.
Yeah.
But it's like you line up these 5 games where the characters are all venturing through a cave at the same time. And you're like, wow, even though they are different games, they look so very similar in how things happen. And the random encounter happens, and you're like, okay, this one has a swirly, this one has tiles falling, this one just has a flashing screen. And it goes to the battle screen with the turn base, and it all just lines up. But it's like, and it makes you wonder, because like that's that thing where your parents would walk in the room while you were playing a game, and they're like, did I just see you play that game last week?
Yeah.
Like, no, Dad. I'm playing Breath of Fire. That was Final Fantasy. Jeez, they're different games, man. But
yeah, I guess they've become a little derivative, sure, but they're always like kind of expanding on different ideas. The good ones do, right? The good ones break new ground, or they refine an idea like really, really good. Like when they introduced the active battle system into the Final Fantasy games. But we're not talking about Final Fantasy, though.
But I will say this, though, for anybody who's like,
Not at
you're
all.
being harsh on video games, Pernell. Not quite the contrary.
You're allowed to be. You play them.
Well, this is true. But I will say I'm not being unfair, at least, because I do admit that applies to, and I think this is just a part of getting old, really, too. Like, that applies to so much. Like, you describe certain movies and TV shows. You can generally just, like, take the plot or narrative and, like, line up the plot points and be like, well, this is boilerplate rom-com. This is boilerplate buddy comedy. This is boilerplate cop drama.
Well, there's like a thing, right, where there's only like 5 stories that can be told. It's like man versus man, man versus nature, man versus God,
Man versus puppy.
man versus self, and then I don't know, God versus puppy.
There it is. The puppy.
But there's only like so many different stories that are told, but we always go back to the same ones. Like, I tend not to care about Marvel movies anymore unless it's an origin story, which is why I don't care that there's like 5 different Spider-Man movies, because I'm like, yeah,
You only want the first one.
give me
You mean the original ones where like we're just going to rebuild Spider-Man? Like, okay, I'm good with all these.
yeah, I'll watch it. Yeah, do it again. Do it again.
Origin, sign me up.
Yeah. Oh, it's a sequel. No, it's a reboot. Okay, I'll do it again. Do it again. I'll watch it. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's also a little comforting. That's something. It's become a meme on the internet where it's like, oh, didn't you know you have anxiety when you watch the same shows over and over at night? And I'm like, yeah?
Just calling me out like that.
Just do it again.
Meanwhile, I have trouble watching the same or playing the same anything, which I don't understand why. I feel like if anything, that might be more anxiety. Like,
Are you watching anything like for a while, or you were watching a bunch of anime? Like, but that's for like a club though, right? Like,
no, I have no club. It's just me. Like, I think right now I'm watching Duncanville.
okay.
Because for some reason, that was one of those shows where I started watching during dinner. I was like, I like this. I'll keep watching it. But I watched that, and still watch One Piece. Still, 20 years later, I still watch One Piece. Let's see, what else is there? My Hero Academia.
Right.
And I could stand to watch some other shows. Like I
You were
want to
into
watch Reincarnated as a Slime or something.
You were watching that one, Beastars.
Yeah, I was watching Beastars, and there was a season 2, but I never started it.
That looks interesting. Looks
It
weird.
was good. It was good. It was odd, but it was good. Because it's all ideal. They were still running with the whole food, the circle of life, food pyramid, and the jungle bit.
Right, because they're all
They were all
animals,
going to
yeah.
school together and acting school. So it was like the deer were going to school with the wolves, but the deer were always afraid of the wolves because the wolves technically want to eat the deer, but they're civilized, so
Yeah.
they don't do that.
It's kind of that's why I liked what I liked about Zootopia, that Disney Pixar one.
I never saw that.
Yeah, it's like they took all of the different animals in the animal kingdom and they grouped them by like size and by like predators of what, and they almost had their own districts. And they were saying that the predators have grown beyond those instincts so that they're no longer predators. But because the entire society is built around being civilized and non-violent, the animals who were once predators are looked at as like they were once savages, and so there's a lot of
Like there's like almost like
a lot of
I hear there's like a lot of like racism aspects, like allegories.
and it works really, really well. But they did it really interestingly that way. If you haven't seen it, it's a fun watch.
I do need to watch
Yeah, it's worth it. Let's do it again. Watch it again.
Zootopia.
It's a good one, yeah. And there's a lot of fan fiction between the two main characters, which are obviously a
I have
bunny,
no
rabbit,
doubt.
and a fox.
I have no doubt. It's the internet.
Yeah.
Cut.
You're like, move on to the next one. I don't know why that came to my mind. Like, yeah, that's a fun show. Why was I thinking about that? Oh, that's right. Someone did some fan art. Let's moving on to the next song.
The next track. So this comes from the game Phantasy Star 4: The End of the Millennium for the Sega Genesis.
Oh, yeah.
And the track title is Cybernetic Carnival, and it is composed by Izuho Numata and Masaki Nakagaki. Welcome back. You are listening to the Cybernetic Carnival. Well, it's not the, but I just feel like saying the.
Yeah.
You get my point. From the game Phantasy Star 4: The End of the Millennium, composed by Izuho Numata and Masaki Nakagaki.
I love the soundtrack. It's so even the fast ones, the fast frantic ones are so cool.
There's not a dud amongst the entire thing, and to be perfectly honest, if I wanted to be a masochist, I totally could make it a goal to get every Phantasy Star 4 track on the show. Good Lord, it would take a long time.
It would take a while.
Well, we definitely have a couple already on the show.
Well, you were playing so much Super Nintendo today. I'm so glad you found a Genesis track.
Well, keep in mind, the theme is why that exists this way. Is because, and I said this back then even, the Super Nintendo was the hub for like the majority of the hotness for RPGs.
Yeah.
There are admittedly a number of good ones on the Genesis, many of which I haven't played to this day, like Crusader of Senti. But Super Nintendo was like the spot. But Phantasy Star was the thing that anyone with a brain would put up and say, despite what you think about the Genesis, there's love for Phantasy Star if you like RPGs or JRPGs.
Yeah, the Genesis had like the big ones people talked about were Phantasy Star and Shining Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love me some Shining Force. Yeah. Now, Phantasy Star was a beloved favorite of listener, friend, and TBC, fellow TBC guy, Chris, a.k.a. Musashi219. He,
wise guy.
The wise guy. There you go. He was a big proponent of the Phantasy Star franchise, most notably 4. And I was going to pick the Rune theme, because that's a character that he touted as being really awesome, and Rune is freaking awesome. But we already played the Rune theme
because it's a good song
way back in like World 2. So
yeah, that was actually at the Genesis RPGs episode.
Yep, and I think you picked that track too,
probably.
So like Phantasy Star 4 though is like it's such a fantastic game, and the reason why this track bops, aside from just being good, is the fact that it's a traditional JRPG, you know. Characters get together, they go walking around, they go to town, shop, get a narrative, go to dungeon, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But at a certain point in the game, you start to get vehicles, you know, typical alternate modes of transportation that JRPGs love to give players.
Yeah, something that flies.
Mm-hmm. But in this case, the first thing you get is an actual tank. It's meant to drive over like desert wastes, like quicksand and stuff.
Yeah.
But most of these kinds of games, either vehicles prevent you from getting into battles, or the battle will just be a normal battle, but now you're on a boat. But this game flipped the bird and the script by giving you a fantastic new battle theme and a new style of combat, because now you're fighting inside the tank, and your combat choices are based off of the functions of the tank. And the enemies are giant enemies that are attacking the tank.
Okay,
if the tank blows up, everybody dies. But if the tank doesn't blow up, you keep going. And if I recall correctly, it auto heals too, so you don't have to worry about using items on it.
That always reminded me that style of combat in these games reminds me of Skies of Arcadia, when you would switch from being just normal guys fighting in the air, which is always silly to me. They were just always fighting on their boat or their airship, and then you'd actually have the airship to airship battles, and that would totally change how it was done.
I feel like with Skies of Arcadia, if they made the airship battles more intense or active, they could have been the entirety of battles for Sky.
They really could have been, but they were so slow because like you had to wait for specific turns to do specific moves because everything was very cinematic.
Mm-hmm. It was like if he's charging his gun, you need to use your shield, but if he's using if it's cooling off, this is when you use your gun to shoot him while he's vulnerable.
Yeah. Oh, and then the whole thing was all right. Bring him about. It was like a naval battle, but it was just kind of boring in that way. But this sounds cool. I like this idea.
Oh, yeah.
Do you get other vehicles too, or it's just like
you do? But the one that stands out right now mainly is the Landmaster or Land Rover or Land something.
I like Landmaster. I'm gonna name my car the Landmaster.
Funny bar is the Landmaster is the name of the tank in Star Fox.
Brunel, getting the Landmaster. You mean the Toyota Corolla?
The very same. But yeah, like I know you get like a spaceship eventually to fly through space, but I don't recall if you actually flew to planets or if you just picked them off of a list once you got the ship. But the Landmaster or the friggin' tank is the main thing that I remember as far as like vehicular traversal.
Now, looking at this artwork for Phantasy Star, it makes me think about how in the 90s, like, anime in America wasn't really prevalent. We talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Like, you can really only find it at, like, a Suncoast Video, sometimes in, like, the adult video aisle, when the videos weren't always adult. They were just anime, right?
They know where else to put them.
But in video games, most of the games that you saw with the anime-style characters were RPGs.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, they did a really nice job of, because they did it like in a sort of comic book style, where if you got to like a cinema scene or a story sequence, they would have the text at the bottom, and they would have like sliced panels a la comics, where it's like, hey, here's the bad guy, and he's like standing up, and it's like a sliced panel, it's like a triangular panel, and the other characters on the right like, gasp! And it was a very, very good way of telling a story. Like, it was exciting.
Yeah, it was almost telling it almost like it was a manga, right? Mm-hmm. Which is really neat. So I'm wondering if the kids who played a lot of these RPGs back in the day, maybe that's sparked their love for anime in the future.
I would not doubt that for a second. Yeah. I'm pretty sure these kinds of games were the stepping stone for me to get into anime. Most notably, once I started doing like CGI animation and stuff like that, because I will say I did watch like old Dragon Ball and Voltron and
me too,
stuff like that, but I didn't put the anime umbrella. I didn't put the anime moniker to those. I was just like, these are different cartoons. I didn't realize that they had an origin and that I could associate them with an entire style. But once I was old enough and I was getting exposed to these kinds of games, I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole thing to go around this? I can find shows that are animated like this?
Yeah,
get me set up.
I remember seeing like Chrono Trigger and being like, oh, they look like they're Robotech. These are Robotech characters, right?
Well, at the time, I immediately linked them up to Dragon Ball because the whole Toriyama setup. Like
yeah, but you knew Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, you didn't watch Dragon Ball back in the day?
I mean, I watched it when it came on to
Cartoon Network.
Yeah, on Toonami.
Oh yeah, like when I watched it, it was in syndication at one point on PHL 17, and even before that, the original Dragon Ball had some episodes, and one of the movies aired on Philly 57.
Oh,
before it was called Philly 57, no less. It was like some other weird name for the channel, but anime was so scattered back then. Was it a UPN channel at that time? Oh, UPN didn't exist yet.
Oh, okay, so it was before that. Yeah. We used to I worked at that arcade. We would work these late shifts. We would finish working at like 2 or 3 a.m. and we would go to this diner and we would ask them to turn on Cartoon Network. So we would all sit around and have dinner and watch Dragon Ball before going home.
Yeah, that's a good play to me.
Yeah, we'd like turn sports off, turn the news off. We're watching Dragon Ball.
Let's watch Goku charge up that Kamehameha
for the whole time we're there. All right, I'm going to turn this track down and we're going to get into the part of the show that we call the bonus round.
Bonus round.
The bonus rounds where we play covers and remixes and arrangements on our theme. And, it took me a long time. I mean, I edit these shows every week, and it took me a long time to realize that when you do your little bonus round song that I've just expected you to do, you're always doing it like to the tune of the last song that we're listening to.
Sometimes.
Not always, yeah, but most times.
Yeah, I like doing it. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a beat here, there's a sound here.
Yeah, I'm like, I should just leave the song playing. But no, I kind of like it that you're like, okay, let's see if Pernell can nail it.
Error time.
All right, so arrangements and covers and remixes on our theme. So I brought to you, this is the official symphonic arrangement for Shining Force 2. This is the finale, composed and arranged by Motoaki Takenouchi. That was the finale of the Shining Force 2 Symphonic Suite, composed and arranged by Motoaki Takenouchi, originally for the Sega Genesis, which was always amazing to me that he got the synthesizer to sound. It replaced all of these instruments. It sounds like the flute, it sounds like the violins and the timpanis, but it's still just a synthesizer rather than sampled sounds of the Super Nintendo. But I always felt that I could hear those instruments in my head as it played back. And then hearing it with a full orchestra is awesome. This whole thing is so cool. I love it.
I just love the OST for the Shining Force game. It was, again, well, the original was Motoi Sakuraba, so kind of a done deal there. But
the first Shining Force?
The original, I mean, I could be well wrong. Actually, I'm very wrong. Take that back. Erase what I just said. That was not Motoi Sakuraba. For some reason, my brain wanted me to believe it was him.
Motoaki Takenouchi.
Yes, the name you just said.
Yeah.
But I've always had a fondness for the OST. There aren't a lot of tracks in the game, actually. And yet, what is there is legit good.
Yeah, the opening track is phenomenal. The village track that was called like Happy Town or something. I've played so many arrangements of that song on the show already. Like it's a great fun song. And then and then the ending theme, the finale is phenomenal. My
favorite track in the game may well be still just the Xeon theme, which is the theme that plays for the final battle, and it stands to reason that may well be one of my favorite big final skirmishes by virtue of the sheer scale of it, because the map is huge. The boss has multiple parts that you have to fight on the map, along with his ridiculously large army of monsters.
Oh, wow.
And it allows you to use more characters in battle than any other battle in the game allows you to use.
Because it's so large.
Because it's really big. And the music for it is just like very tense and orchestral. It's fantastic. I sometimes wish people could just get a save file that lets them go right to that battle just to experience it, despite not even knowing what the game's all about.
Just to enjoy the scope of the whole thing. I have to look that up. I didn't realize that's what happened at the end. I never got to the end of the game. So I'll have to take a look.
It's good.
All right, so what do you got?
So my final track for the episode is a pick from a game. Well, I had to come up with a cover, obviously, but the game itself is Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. The track is a metal cover of the boss battle theme, and said cover was done by Merton.
Good night, Cleveland.
Stop. Welcome back. You are listening to the boss battle of Lufia in the Fortress of Doom, done a la metal, composed or rather arranged and played by Merton. This track is a favorite of mine from Lufia in the Fortress of Doom, but I've already picked the boss theme, which made it perfect to look for a cover on it. Why did I pick this game? The cover, of course, because it's freaking great. But why did I pick this game? Well, that is because Lufia is a favorite of Rich from the Turn-Based Critics. Rich is an interesting character in that he's generally really obsessed with Dragon Quest. In fact, if I was being more authentic, I would have picked a track from that franchise. But it's Dragon Quest, they're everywhere. But with Lufia, I thought it was especially nice because he was the first other person I had met that knew what the heck Lufia was outside of just like the general gamerverse that liked it too. So I connected well with him on that. And of course, he's also a particularly interesting guy because he's always really good for just like keeping a mood light. Like I would go to a convention if I had a bad day or a bad year, like definitely like after I got dumped by my ex-girlfriend, I had the panel right after that coming up a couple months after, and I was like feeling really bad about being in the area again. So this Joker comes up with Johnny Walker Black, and we're just like drinking that, throwing it back, and having good conversation, getting ready for the panel. Like, it's going to be a good time. You're going to have fun. You're going to be glad you came out here.
Keep it light. Yeah, that'll help you.
Oh, I was lit up, but it was so fun. And then the biggest thing of all was the fact, I think I told this story on the show in the past, but it never hurts to tell it again, was that it was a running joke for years when we would do the panel that I traded away my copy of Albert Odyssey for a copy of Shining Force 3.
Yes.
And then it was like the one of the big titles aside from Panzer Dragoon, which I didn't care about at the time, which is why I didn't miss it. Mm-hmm. But it was like the one big title on the system that I didn't have. So the running joke was like, well, won't you wish you still had your copy of Albert Odyssey? That's the one game you don't have or whatever. And then one year on the panel, it was like, hey, we got you a present because we know you've been looking for this game for a while. So he gives me a copy of Albert Odyssey. Open up, the case is empty. And I was like, you jerk. Why would you even do that? It just hurts my soul. But then like a year later or so, when it was going to be our final Turn-Based Critics panel, he's like, hey, I got you a present. And he gives me a copy of Albert Odyssey. I'm like, I'm not going to fall for this crap again. I got to open it. I was like, holy crap. You went and got me a copy of this game. And for those who don't know, go to eBay and look up how much Albert Odyssey costs. You'll know why that was especially surprising and special, and why unless I'm going hungry, I will never sell that game.
The stories you're telling of the Turn-Based Critics is like you actually got together like an RPG party. Like everyone had their special skills, and you were all kind of working together. Did you have to fight and kill God? At the end, your last show that you guys
did? It was more like a digital devil saga where we had to fight God to prove to him that we had a right to exist.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah. So now like you're just more powerful because God acknowledged you.
Yes. There it is. But like I genuinely do miss that whole thing there because like we all just kind of grew out of it as far as time went. But it was just a lot of fun to do. It was a great opportunity / excuse to get together and just dish about our favorite game genre and get nostalgic about it. And of course, the challenge was as we got older and more RPGs started flooding the market, it became hard to keep up.
Right.
So what ended up happening is like on the later years, I'd be the guy who's like, oh yeah, I played like 20 RPGs this last year. But everyone else is like, well, I played like 1 or 2, which is understandable because ain't nobody got that kind of time. Yeah, I just brought that out there. But nobody got that time. Yeah, so that's all right. I totally was like, I get it. But at the same time, I also just went to go to shows. Like as we get older, it's just harder to keep up with this stuff.
Yeah. So, I want one little grip. You guys are the Turn-Based Critics. You played a lot of action RPGs on the show today.
Hey. Wait a minute. Let me see. Phantasy Star 4, turn-based.
Turn-based.
Lufia, turn-based. Okay.
2.
50-50.
50-50.
50-50.
So those members are out of the group then, right?
No. The turn-based critics are diversified.
I got you. Well, for more information on the bonus round of our show, go to rhythmandpixels.com and we'll have links to these artists' Bandcamps and SoundClouds and everywhere you can get the music and support the artists. Thanks for joining us on episode 29-4 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is our 16-bit RPGs
that don't start with Final Fantasy.
That's right. And I'm really excited. Like, this was I was looking forward to this episode. We can have many more. Many more.
Maybe not 16-bit. Oh, good Lord.
There's a lot. There
probably are a couple.
There are more than a couple 16-bit RPGs.
Believe it or not, I'm still learning about ones that got fan translated and released. Like, I learned about Mystic Arc not too long ago. There's this one game where it's like the characters are like cards on a board. There are some games out there that I've never touched from the 16-bit era. It blows my mind that they're out there. I can still experience if I want to get like hyper nostalgic with them.
And we're going to hear some more next week on our Patreon episode, which is our live streamed recorded episode, which we, if you're listening to this the day this podcast is released, we're doing it tomorrow.
Pretty much. So, but hopefully you guys will give it a listen, because we're going to pretty much put it out there.
Yeah, it's on blast on social media and everywhere that you're getting it. But
it should be fun too, because and I'll admit, it's just me saying 16-bit preferred, but we understand not everybody was rocking back then. So if you got to go outside the realm, we're not going to judge you for it. It could still potentially get picked.
I mean, I'll judge you for it.
Well, Rob will judge you for it. I'm more heartfelt and understanding to the concept. So.
You are much more sympathetic to our listeners than I am. You've heard me go off on all of our listeners.
Whereas I'm just it was great. It was awesome.
Rob, calm down. Put
down that spork.
Yes, spork. Anyway, we're finishing this episode out on a Shin Megami Tensei track.
Yeah, because being me, I had to pick something that, I would have referenced in the panel. Shin Megami Tensei, as a franchise, back then, though, was probably when me focusing more on Persona.
Yeah.
But Shin Megami Tensei 1 was the beginnings of the aspect of the franchise that I really love now. I never got into, Goddess Reborn, the old digital devil story and all that. But this is where I came on board. And Genza, though, despite having played on the show in the past, was worthy of being the track to come on again. It was long ago.
Yeah, it's definitely worth at least having at the end of the show.
Now, I'm sure Chris is listening to this right now and is like, why didn't you pick Landstalker, Purnell? I'm sure you would have loved to have trolled me with that one. And honestly, I thought about it. But nah, I got to be true to myself. It has to be a Megaten track for me on this episode.
It's a really neat soundtrack on the Super Nintendo because it has almost because the game itself has a nightmare quality to it. It's like you're traveling through a nightmare, and the music has a dark feeling to it too.
And I got to acknowledge in the end, though, even though I didn't reference tracks from them on the show, there were also a few other TBC folks who were on temporarily here and there and left for various reasons. We had Jason, who was on at the very beginning, but then stuff happened, falling out, resulting in him leaving. We had June, our friend June, who came on as a moderator once Chris became more involved with the panel as a non-moderator.
You said it like monorail. Moderator.
And our friend Sarah, who came on towards the end of the panel. Mm-hmm. And of course, lastly but not least, our friend John, who also came on towards the end of the panel. All fantastic people. It was a great time. Glorious memories. Name that RPG tune. Always had prizes for people. Every year I would bring in $200 in GameStop credit for prizes. And Rich would bring in a bunch of crazy stuff he bought from the store,
cool.
strategy guides, sometimes OSTs and games.
It's worth going to these panels.
Oh, yeah. People were walking out of there with money. And it was worth it because I liked the idea of people feeling like their participation warranted a real prize.
Yeah.
Hey, I guessed it, and they gave me something I'll actually want.
Well, when cons start coming around again, years from now, we'll be there.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll be cutting loose. Maybe I might spend more than a day at one of these things.
You're shooting a curl, busting a jump, dripping a
dibbles. But anyway, if you want to get in contact with us, if you have a track suggestion or a topic suggestion or a band suggestion, or if you're in a cover band, we would love to hear about it. Send us an email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
And you can get in contact with us other ways, but email is probably the best way because it's low stakes, it's less stress.
Honestly, email is just the easiest way to keep everything together. But honestly, if you want to hit us up on Discord, that's fine.
Yeah, or Facebook, you can do that. But I'm more likely to find the email. We've had messages sent in Instagram forever. I'm like, what is happening? I never even use this thing. Check us if you want a full track listing of this episode and access to all of our episodes and links to all of the other stuff that Pernell and I are up to. Go to the website,
rhythmandpixels.com.
Go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. All of our episodes are there, and our live stream radio station playing 8-bit and 16-bit classics and deep cuts. That's rolling and rocking and rolling when it's not running out of memory and dying right now, so I got to take care of that. But I'll be fixing that real soon. Check us out on Discord. The link is on our website, rhythmandpixels.com. A lot of discourse is happening on Discord. And it's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. It's Rhythm and Pixels, all one word. You can find us on all those places. And to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. And there you get access to a weekly prequel episode. You get access to, at all levels, you get access to a weekly prequel episode. You get access to a monthly live streamed episode where it's me and Pernell hanging out, doing our show, recording normally, but you get to kind of be in the room with us.
And heck,
virtually.
And I'm being 100% honest when I say this because, as Rob knows, I bring this up all the blooming time. If you have any ideas for what you think would constitute as an additional tier bonus or something that you might like to see in general, heck, it doesn't have to be a tier bonus. Just like, hey, Pernell, play this video game, because I could use the excuse.
Yeah.
Just let us know that too, because I'm of the ilk, and I think Rob is too, where we like to do what we do, and we have fun doing it. But we don't particularly know what other people want, and for all we know, those things could be things that we would also find fun.
Yeah, and it's more exciting for us to make special content for the listeners.
Yeah,
absolutely. So if you have ideas for that, but I know there will be more merchandise options through Patreon in the near future. As soon as I get my butt off to take care of that. At the higher levels of the Patreon, and all the levels also get special roles in our Discord server. You get access to a special channel on the Discord server, generally related to the live stream shows. At the highest levels, you get different things you can do with our radio station. You can put your own message on our radio station, and you can record your own message on the radio station as kind of like an ad or a promo in between songs. And at the highest levels, we'd like to thank all of our Patreon members. And we'd like to thank all of our Patreon members at the highest levels. We'd like to thank Frankly Zappa. Thank you very much for your kind emails, the videos you're doing.
They're awesome.
On Discord. Yeah, they're really cool. And thanks for hanging out in my Twitch chat. I always really appreciate that. Mike Myers, thank you very much. Safe trip home. He might be home already. Andreas Mielberg, Brian Pitt, Cameron Warma, Carlos Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Chris Weisner, a.k.a. Musashi219, a.k.a. Wise Guy.
Oh, Wise Guy.
Wise Guy. Christopher Shenstrom, Davey Cakes, David Taylor, Harold Howard, Wicked Sephiroth, Justin Schneider from XVGM Radio, another VGM podcast he does with Mike Levy, and Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version podcast, Reinhard Selkova, Sleepy S'more, Steve Miller, Taco, the Autistic Gamer 89, Ed Wilson of the VG Embassy, Ulf Person. Sorry. It sounded like I was
on and off. Oh, mercy.
I know. It just sounded like... Anyway, I could speak where it's good. The last episode of the VG Embassy was all about Motoi Sakuraba.
Oh, really?
It was Mario Golf. Start to finish. Yeah, so except for the early ones.
I think not all of them. Even on the N64, Mario Golf was Motoi Sakuraba.
I meant before N64.
Oh, and it was just golf, and it was just Mario as that weird referee character?
Yeah, no, he was the golfer. He was a weird referee character in tennis. But there's also like a bunch of Game Boy ones that never came out here.
More than just the regular golf game?
Yeah.
There was the Golf NES Golf. There was the Game Boy version of that golf game.
Yes, and then there was another one. There was like a championship one. And then there was one that only was in Japan that had a cell phone attachment that you can play online.
Whoa!
And the soundtrack to that was banging.
Was it a Mario Golf or was it just a golf?
Yeah, Mario Golf, because they were all Mario Golf games. But it wasn't
Mario. Keep in mind, there's Mario Golf as in Mario's in the game, and the titling of Mario Golf.
They picked it because it was a golf game with Mario in it.
There we go. That's what I wanted to confirm, though. Like, which of the two, though? Because that's important.
But no, the soundtrack was like one of the best. It was a Game Boy Color, but it was like a weird cell phone attachment. It was interesting, really weird. Anyway, really good show, Ed. I really enjoyed that. Justin Schneider was also on that episode.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pointing at my monitor like he's looking at me.
We gotta get one or both of them back on the show too.
Oh, absolutely. I would like that a lot. We should invade Ed's show.
I would like that because I've never gone on his show except
No.
for that one time we were up in Connecticut with him.
Yeah, he's like waiting. I'm sure he's just sitting there in the embassy waiting for you to just arrive.
Yeah, yeah, no.
All right, well, I'm getting a little hot in the office for some reason, so I'm going to call it a night. Thanks to everyone for listening to the show. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Purnell.
Have a great weekend or great week. Have a good time.
And remember, I know sometimes we're out and about living our lives, and whether it's the news or the internet or just all around you, you're trying to accomplish some goals, and it seems like everybody and their grandma's already done those things. Everyone's pulling off the feats you want to do, almost like they were born with the magic ticket, or under a lucky star, or just given granola that didn't have ants in it. I don't know. And it might make you kind of feel like, maybe you're missing something, or maybe you just not for you or whatever. But sometimes maybe it just means that for whatever reason, you just got to put a little bit more grease into it. You got to put a little bit more work into it. But it doesn't mean you can't. It just means that you have to try a little harder to pull it off. And it's still something worth fighting for if it's something that you truly want. So I guess the basic statement is just don't quit.
Yeah, remember, people are like icebergs. When you see people at the top of their hobby or their craft, you're not seeing below the water the rest of the iceberg, right? All of the work, all of the practice.
You're only seeing what's above the surface of the water.
Yeah, that's right. Enjoy the journey.
Get some toys at Ginza.